Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. My mission is to ensure that this friendship between our nations does not become the subject of short-lived, fleeting political fluctuations, said Polish President Navroski at a meeting with President of Hungary in Przemyśl in Poland. Later on, the Polish president left and went to Budapest to meet with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Amid rising tensions over EU unity and allegations that Hungary's foreign minister, Péter Balázs, shared sensitive EU information with Moscow. Now to analyze the latest, we're joined by Péter Balázs, former European Commissioner and Hungarian foreign minister. Good to have you back on TVP World.
Good morning.
So let's begin with that quote from President Nawrocki. This friendship, despite fleeting political fluctuations, how do you interpret that? And is that really possible given where we are right now?
Well, as far as the friendship is concerned, of course, there is a 1,000-year-long friendship between Poland and Hungary, between the Poles and Hungarians. However, this is an interesting turn in the position of President Nawrocki, because we remember well that in last November, he was in Hungary on a meeting of the Visegrad 4 presidents, and then he refused to meet Viktor Orban because Orban has just paid a visit to Moscow, another regular visit to Moscow. And then Navroski turned around, went back to Poland and didn't meet Hungarian Prime Minister. Now, this time, this is different. Of course, we had yesterday the day of the Polish-Hungarian friendship. And on this occasion, the President Sujok of Hungary traveled to Poland, met Navroski, and they came together back to Budapest. And Navroski this time was ready to meet Orban and to shake hand with the person who is shaking hand regularly, with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point there. Just tell us from your interpretation why that shift has occurred right now. Is there some kind of political change afoot now? Is this something, what exactly transpired here? Is this the president and his party and policy shifting? I mean, it's essentially, in a way, an endorsement of Orban, but why this shift? Why now?
Well, I think last time Navroski represented the real Polish position, not to meet a person who is a close friend of Putin, the invader of Ukraine. But this time, I think party politics have been more important for Navroski himself, because in Hungary, we are in the hot phase of the election campaign. In less than 3 weeks, there will be parliamentary elections in Hungary. And just the day yesterday, a huge meeting of extreme right politicians of the world. Orban called it Patriots meeting. Milei from Argentine, Marine Le Pen from France, Matteo Salvini from Italy, and many other well-known extreme right politicians came together in Budapest with the aim of supporting Orban, because there is a very strong danger to Orban, and the chances are not very positive for the governing Fidesz party, which has been on power now for 16 years in a row, and the outcome, the result, is very bad, because this was a low-level, bad quality governance, and people are looking, seemingly, according to opinion polls, the majority is standing to change the government.
You mentioned this meeting. I want to go back to that, the CPAC Budapest, as you said, this gathering of far-right politicians from around Europe, but from around the world. I want to ask you on that because we have this video message from Donald Trump. I mean, Orban has touted this relationship between the two men, but it was a video message endorsing Orban. Maybe not a surprise, but there was that hope, apparently, from Orban that he would have J.D. Vance or some kind of administration official come to CPAC. That didn't happen. In fact, I looked, and their only representative, really, that's been sent is Stefano Forte, New York Young Republicans Club president, and two Republican congressmen who are not really, let's say, known so well. What does that tell us, if anything?
Of course, Orban was one of, or maybe the only one who supported the candidacy of Donald Trump, even during the American election campaign. And he was expecting a visit, a personal visit from Donald Trump. The fact is that since the start of his second term, President Trump didn't find the time to come to Budapest in spite of the high expectations on behalf of Viktor Orban. There were some expectations. The CPAC meeting was scheduled for now in order to offer an opportunity to the American president to attend this meeting. Then in a second round, some news circulated that maybe if not him, then Vice President J.D. Vance would come to Budapest. He didn't. So we are a bit surprised because Orban now badly needs support, even if that external support, international friends do not help too much for him, because voters in Hungary will decide on behalf of their everyday experience, on the basis of the rising prices, decreasing quality of life, very bad shape of healthcare, and several others which are the concrete everyday problems of the people. And hardly anybody knows that who is Abascal from Spain or who is Salvini from Italy, so they do not impress too much the Hungarian voters.
Mm-hmm. And so let's focus on another thing. You said everyday things matter for Hungarians. You said it's also the economy, it's about prices. So it's about Europe as well. Let me ask you also what's happened the last few days. We also have, according to the Washington Post, which is interesting, that apparently Szijjártó, the foreign minister, has maintained regular contact with Sergei Lavrov during EU meetings, that head of the diplomatic service of Russia. So what does that tell us? I mean, is Szijjártó complicit in some sort of spying here? How is this being taken in Budapest?
Well, I think the itself is not new, because since the very beginning, since the start of Orban's governance, which goes back to 2010, and in subsequent terms, he himself and his foreign minister, Péter Balázs, have maintained very close contacts with Russia. Szijjártó was received by President Putin, but Orban had at least one meeting per year with Putin, and he did not stop with that close relationship even since the start of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. So Orban has been the only one in the European Union, the only prime minister who went on with talking with Putin, visiting, exchanging visits, and so on. I think the fact itself that the Hungarian government has a close relationship with Russia is not new. Now, some people suppose that not only before important EU or NATO or other meetings and after such meetings, they talk about European affairs, but maybe Szijjártó is taking his mobile phone even in the breaks of ongoing EU sessions, council sessions, and is reporting to Lavrov or asking his instructions. Well, I don't think that it would change too much. It's very bad, and I think Orban and company have felt the refusal of partners of sharing with them important information because there was the hypothesis that they may give it further to Moscow.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, this is another one of those things which all will impact this election. That's coming up very, very soon in Hungary. And giving us the latest there, as always, it's been a pleasure. That was Péter Balázs there, the former European Commissioner for Hungarian Foreign Minister. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks. But stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.